You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
A source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the province.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high, a lot of things.
State of MedTech with your host, Omar and Khatib. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is from a different part of the world of medicine, because usually we talk a lot about like intraoperative procedures, etc. We're talking to somebody who's covering things that go on outside of that. That's really going to improve patient outcomes. We had a great conversation before this. Like me, she's pissed off about a lot of things that aren't right in our industry. We're going to get into that in a moment. But a quick couple commercial reminders for our audience. If you're a medtech founder, we know how difficult it is, one, to raise awareness with investors, and two, while you're trying to talk to investors, you're not a spreadsheet company. You don't have a P&L. You don't have revenue yet. So how do you present to an investor a commercial pipeline, right, that looks good, that gets them excited to say, hey, we're going to write a check for you? And more importantly, how do you use that commercial pipeline to find early adopters? That's what we do here at Khatib & Co. We work with early stage medtech companies to help you set up a pipeline, your CRM, your processes foundation, and more importantly, use things like AI and social media to drive attention into the market, to craft a message, to carve out a category so that you can attract the right early adopters, nurture them, amplify them, and have a viable commercial pipeline. So if you need help getting in front of more investors and developing a sales pipeline, whether you are pre-commercial or full-on commercial launch, I want you to contact us. So hit me up on LinkedIn or go to khatibandco.com. And finally, if you're an investor, many of you investors who are listening to the show, you're trying to get access to deals well before your peers. And so the best way to do that is join my free database. If you look at the show notes below, we have a link in there. Fill out that form about the kind of investment firm you have, what kind of check sizes you're writing, and more importantly, what kind of technologies are you into? And here at State of MedTech, we try and connect early stage companies to investors. This is not something that's paid for. We just try our best to get these companies funded. So fill that out and you might be getting some really good deal flow courtesy of yours truly. So with that said, let's get on to our guest today. I have Shehla Rooney, who's the co-creator and CEO of the GoKNEE. You can learn more at thegoknee.com. Shehla, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into everything that's wrong with the space of orthopedics and recovery, why don't you give us a little 30-second background on yourself, and we'll jump right into the product and the market.
Sounds great. Again, I am a physical therapist. I have 26 years of experience. I have predominantly been doing geriatrics my entire career. I have never dreamed about owning a business or being a business owner or a product creator or an inventor. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So that's how GoKNEE came to be. There was a surgeon that once said, innovation by irritation. And I feel like that's exactly my journey. I did not have a creator mind to begin with, but my background is I'm a PT. I specialize in geriatrics. And most recently, over the last 5-6 years, it's only been knee replacement recovery. And I have done a deep, deep dive, and so many things have been revealed.
That's fantastic. So let's talk specifically. What was the problem that you saw that irritated you so much? You're like, I gotta create something.
It was a patient. It was a younger, probably late 50s male who was having knee replacement surgery. He had actually come for PT before the surgery. Great guy, compliant, motivated, healthy, good weight. He'd been golfing the week before. So, he has the surgery. And then, 4 or 5 weeks after the surgery, his knee wasn't bending like it should. And I'm a great therapist. Like, I got great hands-on skills. I got great knowledge. I'm all the things. And his knee wasn't bending. And again, compliant, motivated. He went back to the surgeon around the 30-day follow-up, and the surgeon pretty much said, hey, your knee needs to be bending better than it is now. If in the next 2 to 4 weeks, it's not bending more than this, we're going to schedule an MUA. So this guy, and I live in Middle Tennessee, he used some curse words and kind of said, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I'm doing what you're telling me. I'm motivated, I'm compliant, I'm healthy. this was an elective procedure for me to have a better quality of life. Just tell me what, the F I need to do. And I work with a colleague who's I call her like a MacGyver. She can create anything. And, she went to a local hardware store and built something. and showed him how to use it. And lo and behold, knee range of motion improved, MUA was avoided, and product was created. Honestly, there probably were patients before then that weren't reaching their goals, but they were either already discharged from therapy and I didn't know. They didn't maybe contact their doctor, or maybe what I've learned is patients thought it was their own fault that they didn't reach their goals. So they didn't think to even call the therapist back and say, hey, I'm not meeting my goals. And this all leads to why people are so dissatisfied after knee replacement surgery. But yeah, that's how that happened. It was just the problem patient. What started off as a solution for one guy, now is going to be this global phenom.
Fantastic. So describe, tell us a little bit about like post knee surgery, like what is usually done in PT and what's wrong with it, and like how does your product make it different?
Okay. So that's a great question. And I feel like not enough people are asking that, not surgeons, not therapists, and not patients. So I've been doing this 26 years, and I have probably had at least, 50 home exercise programs sent to me from PTs all over the country and actually all over the world. And these home exercise programs, other than them looking better in terms of visuals, they're the same exercises that I was taught in PT school. Okay. And I'm not going to be like, oh, ankle pumps, isometric quads, short arc quads, long arc quads, just the standard, whatever. And I feel like that's the problem. The problem is that all these surgical advancements, all the new metal implants and what they're made of, and the instrumentation and the surgical techniques and, the navigation and the robotics, like everything that surgeons are doing and the implant industry is doing that is propelling it, the trajectory is crazy. You have therapists where the home exercise program is still the same. Now, therapists, their hands-on skills are getting better, meaning they might be dry needling and scraping and taping and cupping, and they got different equipment in the gym. But the problem is these patients are no longer going to inpatient rehab for 3 weeks, getting 3 hours of therapy a day, for 6 to 7 times per week. That's not what's happening now. They're not in the hospital for 3 days. They're in the hospital for maybe a day, right? Or going in the morning and leaving in the afternoon. And then they're being sent to either home health or outpatient, if any therapy. So, used to get 18 hours of therapy. Now they're getting maybe 3 hours a week. So it doesn't matter how great the therapist skills are getting. It doesn't matter how many courses I go to or how many certifications I get. If I can't teach that patient to do something better when they're not in front of me, then I've in essence failed the patient. So what I say is I've created the diet that you can do, 3 times for 3 meals a day, 2 snacks a day, 7 days a week. And if you follow this, really great diet and have access to 3 meals, 2 snacks, 7 days a week, you're going to have better results. And that's what GoKNEE does. GoKNEE has allowed the individual to do a more aggressive, more advanced home exercise program. The device mimics my hands. So now the patient can do things like joint mobilizations, isometrics, muscle energy techniques, really advanced techniques that used to be they had to come to the clinic, to get done. And then to add the cherry on top, they don't love our hands on their knee. I love putting my hands on a post-surgical knee, but the patient doesn't. They're ready to wince and they're going to cry and they're bracing and they're breathing. And so in hindsight, I loved treating knees because I wanted to get the range, but I missed the boat. The patient needs to be in more control. Neurologically, that's just better for them. But what the difference is, I have a more advanced home exercise program. And when a patient can do more advanced exercises safely at home every day, you're going to have a better recovery.
Got it. That makes sense. And, I'm going to share my screen for a second for those who are watching on YouTube or Spotify, just to kind of show the product, just so they have an idea. But let me go to your home here. So essentially there's the product, right? Yeah. And let me go to this video.
Listen, you're big into sales, Omar. So I have learned by listening to you as well, and in marketing, I need to identify the immediate objection that anybody that is looking at this right now, the immediate objection is that PVC and pool noodle? That is what I hear from all health professionals. And I'm here to say, yes, it is. I have tried every material. Yeah. I've gone to manufacturing.
You know what can I tell you why I like that? Can I tell you why I love that?
Yeah.
Low cost.
Yes.
Low cost. And it's not, and so anybody can buy this. And by the way, I might buy one of these from you. So I'm in an immaculate shape. Okay, I'm not in immaculate shape. I'm in pretty good shape. But one of the things that I've done in the last couple of weeks is that Brian Johnson, who's, I think he spends $2 million a year on his body. He's the guy who sold Venmo to PayPal. So he's an the longevity guy and everything, anti-aging guy. So I do his longevity routine, and one of those things is just bulletproofing your knees. So I have like 2 pieces of equipment just for my tibialis, just to strengthen it, and then I'm doing like Nordic curls and stuff because I just want to bulletproof my knees. Like I have a young son; he's 2 years old. We're gonna have hopefully more kids, and so I want to be able to like play sports and just do all these things. And so I was looking at this. I'm like, oh, this looks like something I should actually buy just for my gym as well.
Yes. Well, and what I've said to people is, yes, it looks like that, but there's actually like 30 different parts and products that go into that. And there's about 26 different steps to put it together to make sure it's safe. It comes apart if the person doesn't use it safely. And then it's our program. It's teaching how long should a stretch be held? I mean, I feel like surgeons think they understand the recovery. Or they think the PT they're referring them to understands everything knee replacement recovery, and it's just not true. Like, I have a 20-year-old son. If he has a knee injury, you can't rehab him the same as a post-op knee replacement patient. Like, there's a whole neurological component to knee replacement, with chronic pain being the, precursor to having knee replacement surgery. So part of me is just, yes, it looks the way it does, but the functionality, I mean, I have a utility patent. It's not based on what it looks like. It's based on the ability to do a joint mobilization safely, like the patient can do one on their own. So again, I'm glad you didn't have the objection, but a lot of people have the objection with the appearance, but it weighs 4 pounds and 4 ounces. I mean, I did it for the end user to not be fearful with straps and cranks. And, I wanted it to be user friendly. It's for the patient. It's not for the surgeon. It's not for the PT. It's for the patient.
Yeah, and it does look user friendly. I mean, you have people can just buy it from your website. So again, you go to thegoknee.com, and it's essentially $400, and it comes with the device and then the exercise program. So are those like videos? Like how? Like what are you doing there?
Yeah, it's like just a turnkey. The person buys it, it gets sent to their house. In the box is a one-page sheet. The one-page sheet has a link to the online exercise videos, and it's literally like press, play, tells you how to pop it together. Number 2, let's do some static flexion stretching. Let's do some, it's all broken down to flexion, extension, stretching, strengthening, muscle control. I even have a skip intro, kind of like Netflix, meaning once you've watched it a couple times, you're going to understand. But also what I think is missing in knee replacement recovery, that is why patients are so dissatisfied, is I think there's unrealistic expectations. I think nobody has time to tell the patient what to expect. And then we wonder why their satisfaction scores are low. And, coming up down the pike is these patient reported outcome performance measures. And I know surgeons are like freaking out. They're telling me like, well, what if they report their outcomes lower, but they weren't compliant or they didn't do their exercises? Like they're saying all these things, but to me, we're missing the point. Like the point is that the patient should easily be able to access this. So you press play, you watch it on an iPad, your phone, your laptop, whatever. It guides you through all the exercises. It even has a timer, like the old school Jane Fonda videos. There's a timer so you can count down. But the key is me saying, okay, you're going to feel like your incision is going to pop open, but it's not. This is what we're going to do. Like, it's about setting an expectation for the patient that they're not doing anything wrong, that they're going to be okay, that pain is normal, and it's not always tissue related. It also could be a hypersensitive nervous system telling them stop what you're doing when really the tissue could do more. So I believe there's a whole component. So yeah, for $399, you're getting a patented knee device. You're getting customized videos that are directed towards a knee replacement patient. It is not indicated for a sports medicine ACL repair. It is for the older adult who's having knee replacement surgery. It's very specific to them.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And so can you essentially use this like as a prehab, like, like to prevent knee injury?
Yes. So I actually just had a lady about 2 weeks ago. She used it for 3 weeks before her surgery. And then for some reason, she had the surgery on Friday. There was a delay in the home health starting. Home health didn't come till, I think it was Wednesday. So, by 5 days in, she already had, close to 120 degrees. She was lacking about 7-8 degrees of extension. But yeah, she did it 3 weeks before. The benefit is, and I mean, some surgeons are like, prehab, we used to do that. We don't anymore. Well, usually it's because it's not reimbursed anymore. And now joint camps are becoming about education about the surgical process, what to expect. But really, there is a ton of research that says if you can get that knee moving, stretched, that quadricep muscle working and as strong as possible, you're going to have a better outcome. So GoKNEE's program, like I said, we're a full functioning knee recovery program. There's prehab, there's post-op, and there's long-term maintenance. And it's all just taken care of. Doesn't require, if there's PTs listening, I don't need your input. I don't need you to change it based on what you think. Like it's all based on, the typical knee replacement individual.
Got it. What do you think have been some of the barriers to adoption for you guys so far?
Oh gosh, so many, Omar. I will take full responsibility. The first barrier was my lack of knowledge of sales and marketing. First of all, my lack of knowledge of the product adoption cycle. Didn't know what that was. I thought if there's a problem, there's 1 million Americans going to have this surgery next year. It's increasing by 350% over the next decade. It's the most frequently performed orthopedic procedure. My thought is if I interviewed 1 million of those people and said, hey, do you want a faster, smoother, less painful recovery? I assumed 100% would say yes. And I thought, great, I got a product, I got a customer side, and it should work. So I was very naive in how you bring a product to market. I also was naive in thinking that because I was a health professional, other health professionals also thought like I did. So that was a barrier, was my not understanding what's in it for you philosophy. I didn't understand that. I just understood the patient journey so well. So I marketed really wrong, and I marketed to the wrong people with the wrong messaging. I didn't have the answers to their questions because I didn't anticipate them. So I would say that was the biggest thing. The ability for health professionals to adopt something new is not easy. And especially surgeons. I mean, they want to learn what they want to learn, but they don't want to learn anything else. But then they're telling me like, yeah, I want to improve patient outcomes, or I'm tired of stiff knees, or, I don't want to do manipulations in my practice, or, whatever. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, okay, let's talk about that. What if you could reduce, but then they don't want to adopt something. I don't want to tell my patients about something that looks like that, and I'm just like, interesting. So how much do you really want your patient outcomes to improve and your satisfaction to improve? And I thought when reimbursement changed, that would follow too. Like I'd be like, hey, surgeons, you're going to get paid based on patient outcomes, patient reported outcomes. Like I can help with that. And then I learned that some surgeons don't even know how they get paid, number one. And then number two, they see it so narrow, like I'm using the best implant, I'm doing the best surgery, I'm so good at what I do, therefore that equals a good recovery. Well, it doesn't. The best surgeon with the best implant, does not equal a good recovery if the patient does nothing afterwards. And so I guess my barriers were surgeons' unrealistic expectations, surgeons referring them to their lead PT, not realizing their lead PT is a generalist. These hip and knee surgeons are, doing high volume. And that's why they have good outcomes, right? Like meaning people don't die and people do well and the alignment is great. But what they're doing is sending them then to a generalist PT who treats a shoulder and an ankle and a kid and a teenager and an athlete. Like that's the difference, is we're not sending them to people that only treat knee replacement people. And that's a very different patient. I mean, they've been having pain for years leading up to this surgery. They've had injections. They've been, reducing the quality of their life over years. There's a whole psychological component to knee replacement recovery that a lot of PTs don't have time to even think about. So again, those are probably my biggest barriers, is slow to adopt, my inability to get in front of the right audience, my poor marketing skills, my poor sales skills. I think those are the big ones.
I mean, I think it's great that as a founder that you can, at least admit that, because most founders that I talk to, they think they're great at sales, great at marketing. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not. Actually really bad. You're doing all the wrong things, which is why I have a business essentially. Otherwise, if these weren't problems, I would have to find something else. What I find interesting though is that I completely agree about sending patients to a knee specific PT, but not everybody is in a major metropolitan city where a PT who focuses just on knees has enough volume, right? And so what I like about what you have here is that you're essentially, you've created a product and a program that delivers a sort of a PT in a box, or at least some vehicle, so that any patient can have a very specific rehabilitation program from home using your products. So it kind of scales a problem.
Yes, it levels the playing field that if somebody can't access PT, doesn't have access to a good PT, it just levels it up because now all of a sudden the person has access to do more aggressive things at home. And I mean, it doesn't matter what surgeons say to me about patients being lazy or whatever. Every patient that chooses to have a knee did not make that decision lightly. So they're not choosing a poor outcome. If a poor outcome results, it's because the patient wasn't told what was expected of them. The expectations weren't laid out ahead of time. And then, it's almost like, oh, your knee is so bad. It's the worst knee I've seen. I don't even know how you're walking. The only thing to fix that is a surgery. Well, yes, the surgery is going to fix the orthopedic part, but then there's a whole rehabilitation part and a neurological part. How do you tell your brain to stop protecting this knee that it's been protecting for decades for most of my patients? Like they're like, I had an injury when I was 18, or I had surgery in my 20s. And so to me, I just feel like it's just a perverse system. Like I feel like even if you're in a metropolitan area, like I'm outside of Nashville, Nashville's got a ton of clinics, but PTs don't just see knee replacement patients. They're orthopedic PTs, there's neuro PTs, there's cardiopulmonary PTs, there's orthopedic certified manual therapists, but they're not just seeing knees. And I've talked to hundreds of therapists across the country, and they're always like, oh yeah, the pain neuroscience aspect. And I'm like, yes, if the minute you crank on their knee and they're like, stop, they think it's an 8 out of 10. If you can't convince them, actually, it's not an 8 out of 10. Look, your tissue is not, super tight. Like I feel a softness I feel like you're missing the point. You can't treat them as if they have just soft tissue pain. They don't. But yeah, that's my pet peeve is that surgeons do this great job and they advance their skills and then they send them to the abyss of PT, assuming that PTs know exactly what they're supposed to do. And I'm a big patient advocate. The patient is always crapped on, meaning the patient goes back and the recovery's not going well. The surgeon rarely blames the PT. I mean, unless the patient's like, my PT made me cry and they hurt me really bad. But, a lot of the times the patient is getting blamed by the surgeon, by the PT, which just feeds into that neurological cycle. The PT is like, you lost 5 degrees from Monday to Wednesday. You must not be doing your exercise program. Or maybe you gave them a terrible home exercise program, right? So, and same thing, the surgeon is like, look at my beautiful x-rays. I have done nothing wrong. Like, I know you're saying your outcome is not good and you're having lots of pain, but look at my beautiful x-rays. I am not at fault here. And that just bothers me that the patient feels like they have done something wrong. And they've not done something wrong. We have failed them by not giving them a better post-operative recovery journey.
And so would you say that the GoKNEE product actually like solves that completely? And if so, how?
That's a great
question.
How
and why?
Well, it solves it because if somebody can do something more aggressive at home every day, they're going to have a better outcome. Period. End of story. Again, the diet analogy. If you can eat healthy, 3 meals and 2 snacks on a more consistent basis, like I think it's the 80-20 rule, or maybe I made that up, but if 80% of the time I eat good, I'm going to be healthy. And the same thing, like I feel like we send them home with a subpar exercise program where they can do compensations. They don't feel good. They don't know why they're doing them. There's nobody, guiding them through it. And so they feel pain immediately. They're like, I'm doing something wrong. I got to stop. And I feel like with GoKNEE, it's not just the exercises. It's not just the device creating a torque like that mimics my hands, but it's also the videos that provide, I'm going to call it psychobabble, that helps with that pain neuroscience. It helps with the desensitizing the nervous system to make the person feel safe that they're not causing tissue damage if they push a little harder or resist a little bit more. And I think that's what's missing. And then you come to PT and we hurt you. So we, in essence, are just reinforcing the brain. Yeah, brain, you need to protect this new knee. We don't like it. So it's this vicious cycle. And then I feel like everybody's in silos. The surgeon's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know why this patient's a stiff knee and this other one's not. They don't know. There's no consistency. Like, why does this person can bend, but they can't straighten? Why can that one straighten and not bend? And I think PTs are the same thing. They put you in a recipe. These are the exercises you're going to do. You warm up on the bike. You end up with ice. It's very recipe, and it shouldn't be because every individual knee replacement patient is different.
That it makes it makes a lot of sense, and I think like probably the biggest thing is that because it's a device,
Mhm.
it's easier to. It's kind of like when you work out and you go to the gym. Um, One of the benefits about the machines is that like you don't have to worry so much about technique, and you literally just focus on building muscle for that one specific area, and the machine takes care of everything else. And it seems like for these exercises, if the patient has something to guide them at home, and even to some extent, like let's say this is it's low tech, like it's not a robot or something, but this seems to be a much better approach even compared to a PT, because a PT is a human being, and so one PT guiding somebody through these exercises versus somebody else, like there's a lot of variability in that. And I think that's probably in part why you were frustrated and started this, because like you know it just shouldn't be like this. Why hasn't anything been developed for this? Why did it take you to kind of come up with something like this? Because it seems like a fairly
Mhm.
simple and straightforward device, which I like.
Yes. You know what,
Why?
Omar? Well, my children have asked me this, like, how could someone not have come up with this other than you, mom? And I'm like, I really don't know. And I'm actually annoyed at myself for not coming up with it sooner and realizing that the disservice I was doing to my patients. But I've actually been asked to speak like internationally, and I'm still waiting for like almost the curtain to be unveiled, like the Wizard of Oz, where someone's like, oh no, someone's already created something like this, and it's already, all over the globe. It just apparently is not in the US, which doesn't make any sense. But I don't know why someone hasn't. And I think it's because PTs want to do PT. So we spend a lot of time learning what to do more in the clinic, meaning when a knee comes to me now, 20 years ago, I didn't do any scraping or dry needling or like all these new techniques I've learned. And same with manual techniques, mobs. Oh, let me do this mob and let me do this oscillation. We continue to advance our hands-on skills, but not necessarily our education skills. And a lot of therapists don't go to pain neuroscience seminars. Like they're going to how to rehab the shoulder, or, I want to learn the concussion syndrome, or I want to, whatever is the flavor to get the caseload into their clinic, which knee replacements are just coming through the door no matter what. You really don't have to do a lot because the volume's increasing. I just don't think that therapists are like, knee replacement patient recovery is hard. I think they just don't think that they have more control than they do over the patient's recovery. I
No,
don't
that
know.
makes a
I
lot of
really don't
sense.
know. I really don't know. But yeah, the fact is, there will be something that comes out later on down the road that's way more sophisticated than GoKNEE. But right now, again, I've talked to people all over the world, health professionals, patients. I had a lady from Ireland reach out to me this week, like, how do I get your product in Ireland? And, I had someone from Dubai, like, hey, so clearly there's a need. But yeah, I don't know. But yay me.
Got it. That makes sense. Well, as we kind of round things out, couple other questions for you. Like one is that like, do you guys have any patents on this?
Mhm. Yeah, we have a utility patent in North America. We do.
Perfect. That's fantastic. And then, the other thing is that like right now, you guys are selling on your website and everything. In terms of like your traction channels, like where are your customers coming? First of all, is the majority of the revenue just being generated directly from purchases on your website?
It is. It is.
Okay.
I'm going to say 90% of my sales is through direct to the consumer because they're
And
researching.
where are they coming from? Do you know where they're
They're,
coming from?
yeah, they're coming from Google Ads. I've spent a ton of time with SEO on my website and on my blogs and even my YouTube videos. But I started putting out YouTube videos about a year and a half ago. And my children say they're boring and sterile, me talking into a camera. But I tell patients like, hey, how should you determine what surgeon should do your knee? Here's the top 3 questions I would ask. Here are 5 things you need to know before you schedule your knee replacement. Or here's the top 3 mistakes people make after knee replacement. How do you even know you have knee osteoarthritis? Like I just put out content that I would want my patients to know so they can be informed. And they're just Googling. Everybody's on the computer looking up what they should or should not be doing. And if they can find you, then they find your information. And if they like your information, they look at your product. And if they look at your product, so you understand all that. Creating the awareness first. And it took me a long time. I spent first 2 years going after B2B. I wanted to go after surgeons and therapists only to find out they're not my ideal customer because they don't have an urgency.
And like just kind of like the last thing I want to touch on, as we round things out. And thank you so much for coming on the show. And big shout out to Zed Williamson who connected us. We talked a little bit about big ortho before we started recording. No holds barred. Give us your take on that.
Well, I have talked to some large ortho companies out there, and they're super, I find that I don't know if it's a word is lower level, but before you get to the senior, like the high end executives, they're all like, we get it. Like some of the engineers get it. They're like, this is fantastic. And oh my God, this is a cheap technology to implement versus like, implantable, sensors or like technology to do like apps and all this stuff. But as it climbs up the chain, I guess my naivety is they're so busy. They got so many headaches. They're looking at hundreds and hundreds of products, maybe thousands, that it gets lost. But I just find it so interesting because they all claim, especially even in 2024, that a priority is, value-based care, home-based stuff, patient-focused, improving patient outcomes. All of them preach this. But then when it actually comes down to it, like I have a solution for all those things, but then they'll be like, well, who's going to pay for it? I don't think the surgeons are going to adopt something that looks like that. And my thing is like, I don't know, maybe your sales reps know which surgeons are ready to receive this. Let them figure it out. But I just feel like there's a lot of red tape with large ortho companies. So I'm kind of just, again, my ego is fed because they came to the table to talk about it. So, but I think I'm going to go to the smaller ortho companies that, maybe can get there quicker. I don't know, but I would love that, obviously. But yeah.
It makes sense. And, what I think is exciting is, again, you sort of bootstrapped and self-funded this, and you've done a really great job because like just on, your presence online, your website, everything, you've done a better job than a lot of venture-backed companies that I know. So I applaud you as a business owner for doing that. And, I'm excited for you. I think that what's great is that a lot of times for healthcare innovation, it's often mistaken that you need to spend, it has to be really expensive and a lot of money. And you have a solution here that's affordable. It fixes a problem. And then more importantly, it takes kind of in a funny way, because I love products like this, but I never thought it could be done with a low tech product like this. No offense, but there's like, that's the beauty of it. It's a low tech product, but it scales it kind of scales the skills of a specialist. In this case, like a PT who focuses on knees at scale and in a way that can be done in a patient's home. And I really love it. So I think that if I can give any advice is just to keep at it, and that like the entrepreneurial journey is not supposed to be easy. Otherwise everybody would do it. And, you never know when you're going to like catch on fire and get that traction, so I'm really excited to kind of watch you guys grow. People can find you on LinkedIn, and then where else can they find you on? It looks like the GoKNEE is they can just look up on YouTube, Instagram, etc. Correct?
Yeah, I just want people who are in the knee replacement space, who are looking to do something different, try to improve the patient journey, connect with me, reach out with me. I'd love to talk with you. I'm looking for the early adopters, the innovators, the people that are going to focus on what is possible. That's who I would love for you to reach out. That would be great.
Fantastic. Well, for those who are listening, thanks for tuning in once again. Go check out the website, thegonee.com. That's TheGoKNEE.com. I'm your host, Omar Khatib, and we will see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, and most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.